Oh! Hey everybody.
Good morning.
They might not be watching in the morning time.
Well, it's morning in Alabama. And it's a rainy morning, which is rather fitting for this video. Last week we had the opportunity to go to Monte Sano State Park, which is off of Highway 431 in Huntsville. And it rained, on and off, the whole time we were there. But we had a great time. We got to meet up with Sam's best friend from high school, Chris Carson, and his wife Lindsay, and their three girls, Rory, Liberty, and Meredith. And their girls mirror our three kids in age, so everybody had a buddy that was the same age or close to it. And this is our adventure at Monte Sano. We got there on Wednesday, and loading up Wednesday here in Alexandria. The sun was out, it was hot, it was muggy, but we were hoping to get to Huntsville before the rain came in, but we weren't, 20 minutes from the house and the rain started. And it rained the other hour and a half to Huntsville. Pulled into the park, stopped raining, and we were able to get to our campsite, get back in, and about the time we were going to unhitch, it started again. So bless Micaiah's heart. He stuck with us, he helped us, got soaking wet, but as his daddy says, that's what teenage boys are good for.
That's right. So we got unhooked and set up part way, and then our friends arrived and they pulled in. They've got a similar length camper trailer, and they got backed in. We got the kids out and kind of had I guess you would call it a Mexican standoff there for a little bit, and then they finally decided that they could play with each other, and so they did. And it was funny. Micaiah and Rory are almost the same age. I think she might be a few months older.
Younger.
A few months younger.
She's younger.
Okay. And then Olivia and Liberty are...
Liberty's a couple months older than Olivia.
Okay. And then I think Meredith is probably...
She's a few months older.
Several months
older than Evelyn.
But they were still very close, and it was funny, especially watching the two little ones like peas in a pod. So
they were.
Yes, both big imaginations and a lot of fun, I think.
They did. They disappeared together, and you'd go looking for them, and they were holed up in Chris and Lindsay's camper playing princesses. They both found something to dress up in, and had stuffed animals laying all about, having a tea party or whatever their adventure was at that moment.
Yeah, Lindsay came back over and at one point and said they have chip-wrecked. We were both in there evidently having gorged on packets of
Lay's potato chips,
yeah,
Lay's brand.
So
Lindsay had bought a 54 box pack of a variety pack of Lay's chips, and they had evidently helped themselves to several different bags in Meredith's bunk bed.
Wednesday afternoon was rainy, setting up. Finally got everything set up, and it began to pour. It was monsoon-ish or monsoonical, whatever you want to call it. There was a lot of rain.
It was my night to cook dinner, and I cooked dinner in ankle-deep water, hoping and praying that our electrical cord stayed out of the water.
Yes.
So the Instapot could still run, and it did. And we were able to enjoy a meal together. The campsites at Monte Sano are a little different than a lot of the state parks we've been to. They have shared sites. and some places call them buddy sites.
Not all the sites, but several.
Probably about half of them were shared sites, and it looks like a giant V. Each party gets one side of the V, and at the back there's a spot for the picnic tables. And so we set Chris and Lindsay's table up there, and they have a big 13 by 13 canopy tent that we put over the table, and we were able to eat dinner in relative dry. And then we headed off to bed that night and got up Thursday morning. It wasn't raining to begin with, and so the kids slowly crawled out of bed and immediately came looking for each other, and whichever camper was the first to wake up, and got the bikes out, started riding, started playing, and we're soon, Mama, 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 can we go to the playground?
So we did.
We did. One thing this Sam's has mentioned before has been strange about COVID is they closed all of the playgrounds at the state parks, and I guess at most places around the country. And as we pulled in, they had an enormous playground, so that was our first stop on Thursday morning. It was almost a mile from our campsite to the playground, and they all they all rode bikes. Lindsay and I walked, and the four big ones immediately went for the seesaws. They had two giant seesaws like what we used to have on our school playgrounds, and they stayed there the bulk of the time. The little ones ran around, imaginations soaring, creating different stories and playing on all kind of things. Lindsay and I had a chance to catch up, and the guys did whatever the guys were doing.
We made it back to camp, ate lunch, and then headed down to Huntsville to the Space and Rocket Museum, and got to see some of the cool stuff they have there. We knew that the simulators would not be active, and they're very, very small spaces, very confined spaces, but still, getting to see the rockets and the old space shuttle and all that kind of stuff in real life, full size, right up close, is really pretty cool. But the kids were somewhat interested, but they wanted to play. So after we spent some time there, we went back to camp, making a couple of stops along the way to pick up supplies and get Katie's birthday's in June, so she got a coupon for.
I got a free dozen donuts from Krispy Kreme, and the kids have been mad at me because I hadn't gotten them yet, and they knew it was going to expire soon. So we made a side stop, helped everybody's attitudes, and headed back to the campground.
Where it rained most of the afternoon, but the kids still got to play, ride bikes, that kind of stuff. That evening, it let off enough that Chris was able to get a fire started, and so we did s'mores around the campfire that night. But
there was much debate on whether you should burn them, just get them gooey, or barely even get the marshmallows hot. And then the conversation began on what kind of chocolate was best. I had cookies and cream and regular Hershey's. Lindsay had salted caramel and regular chocolate. So there was much debate, but everybody had a good time. The kids were sticky when it was over, and we headed off to bed for our next adventure on Friday.
Friday morning was hiking day, and so Katie and I and the kids, we don't do a lot of hiking. We just hadn't yet. Carson's a little more experienced in that area, and so we headed out there. A lot of trails for hiking at Monte Sano, and we took the Sinks Trail, which leaves near the observatory that they have there, and then branched off onto the Stone Cuts Trail, and then eventually, after getting lost for a few minutes, made it back to the Sinks Trail and back home. It was a pretty strenuous little hike, though. Moderate.
Yeah, Lindsay looked at me that morning. She said, "Now, this is a moderate trail." I said, "What does that mean?" She said, "I don't know." I said, "Well, we'll try it. We can always turn around and come back." It was a little bit intense because the kids were leading us. The pace was a lot faster than what I would have chosen. And by the end of the hike, it was physically taxing for me, but it was so neat to see the different rock formations, to see the layers in the rocks.
At one point, you get to actually walk through several places where the rock is split open, and that's, I guess, why they call it the Stone Cuts. But it's very cool, almost like walking through a cave. And a couple of spots you got overhanging rock and supported on both sides, so it's really neat. Our girls were not.
They weren't too hip on walking through
Not
the
really
tunnel.
excited about it, but our kids are kind of sheltered. They're not big outdoorsy at this point anyway. So it was an experience for them. The Carsons are a lot better at this stuff. They've got some of those it's the little things that can make a real difference. And they had snacks for the kids and some of that kind of stuff. Chris is a member of the Georgia Defense Force, and so he had a MRE that he broke out and.
It was only 5 years old.
Yeah, but he got it out, showed us how they cook it, and gave everybody a taste of it and that kind of stuff. So that was fun.
But it was neat to enjoy God's creation. Didn't see too many creatures. We did see some deer on the way back off the trail. Also saw some huge snails. They were about the size of a $50 on the walls inside the tunnel. There was also a cluster of cave crickets. I guess it was a little bit bigger than a dinner plate on the roof of the tunnel. And Lindsay and I both commented it was nice to see them in their natural environment and not inside our houses. Because they're not fun to encounter in the middle of the night.
Yeah, we'd heard a report of the Alabama white thing there at the campground, but we didn't see any evidence. Although one night out late, me and Chris were talking and heard some hollering off in the distance, and you never know. So anyway, it was still a good natural experience that day. That evening, that afternoon,
Yep.
we went back, rested for a little while, ate lunch.
Dodged rain showers.
Yeah, and then made our way to the North Alabama Japanese Garden.
Tea garden.
And got to see it, and it's a neat.
It was a neat garden. Couple of bridges crossing the creeks that are rain fed. Nothing that you can really even play in. But the kids had fun running on the path through the gardens. They had, I guess you call it a pagoda, or some kind of building structure there that they chased each other in and out and climbed through the circle windows and just enjoyed being outside. It wasn't raining at that moment, but it did catch us on the way back, and I think we were all pretty well soaked by the time we walked back to the camper.
Yeah. Dried off and had supper,
Yep.
and then we had movie night. Put all the kids in our camper, and with the setup we have, worked well to have all 6 of them in there. They watched one of the Star Wars movies that we brought along, and the adults got to sit outside under a tarp in the rain and just talk.
Yeah.
Enjoy the cool weather.
Yeah. One thing have not been good at in this camping adventure is making sure that we have the appropriate clothing. When I checked the forecast to pack for this trip, it was going to be upper 80s, upper 60s at night. It didn't get above 70 degrees the whole time we were there. So Sam and I and the kids were chilly. Thankfully, I grabbed a jacket for the girls. Still don't know why I did that. But we now all have a jacket or a long sleeve shirt in the camper that will live there for those moments when it is chilly.
We think.
We hope. We'll find out. We usually have the right quantity of clothes, but not necessarily the right pieces of clothing. So that's something we're still learning, still trying to figure out. But it was just wonderful to be together as friends, to watch the kids form new friendships.
And to be laid back and not overscheduled or overrushed, and
it was much
enjoyable.
needed. It was much needed.
And Saturday morning we got up and it was time to pack up, and so we got up and lazed around for three or 4 hours to pack up and pulled out and headed back home. But just had a great time, a good trip.
It was. Monte Sano is a different state park. Sam mentioned this a little bit ago. There's not a whole lot to see in the state park itself. It is very wooded still. So there's no real scenic views like you may get at the lake or you may get...
I do have an overlook there at the camper, which is nice when it's not
But it's not
cloud.
raining.
So that's about all we saw off the overlook was clouds.
Yeah, but it's nice. The main focus of that state park seems to be the trails. A lot of people hiking. A lot of people had mountain bikes waiting for them to say they could go on the trails, but because of the rain, they kept as many off of them as they could so as not to tear them up. But it's right there at Huntsville. Of course, there's a lot to do in Huntsville. And right now, the Space and Rocket Center is 50% off because so much of it is closed because of COVID. But just a neat opportunity. We are blessed with about 8 to 10 state parks within 2 hours of us. And the nice thing about Alabama state parks is almost all of them have full hookups and some capacity for under $40 a night. And that is something you do not find many other places, especially in the South. So we are thankful for what God's given us, thankful for this trip, and looking forward to the next one. So thank you for your blessings. Thank you for your prayers.